Welcome back everybody. Today we're gonna play Cypher on Abyss. Today is day 55 of playing every agent on every map. Today's agent Cypher is, at least for rank, probably one of the best agents to climb with. His trips having no deactivation distance makes him really versatile, and his cam is also really good info. Combine that with his cages being a pretty decent smoke you can use to defuse, plant, or even hide behind to get to different spaces, is a pretty good thought out toolkit, and it is pretty good on a lot of maps, especially on Abyss, which is a pretty big map where you can have information over almost all of the map, even when you're on the other side of the map. Starting off with A-side defense. A-side defense is a pretty simple thing. There's like a million cams you can place and a million trips you can do. So just switching up between these few trips and cams is a pretty good thing if you want to hold A in a good way. Starting off with cams. You can place a cam right here in the beginning of the round and kind of see into main. I wouldn't recommend using it to watch into main because it gets broken pretty easily. Wait for them to come out towards side and then pop your cam. It is pretty hard for them to go all the way up after they have entered the site and then destroy the cam, so you can get a lot of information over them without losing your cam. Other cams you can use is one up here. Jump up and place it here. You can see a little into main and you can see the site pretty easily. Or you can also place a cam when you go up here. Place it on this beam right here to check the site. This one is also pretty hard to see, and it also can't be seen from main. Or another one is all the way up here. And one more you can use, I wouldn't recommend using that one, but it works sometimes as well, is one right here. Like this, you can see the people, especially the people close here, and they can see your cam. And you can also see parts of backside pretty well. If they are always taking this space, a cam like this can do you pretty well. Combined with either one of these cams, you can use trips like these. All the way in the edge as a floor trip, as a kill trip. If they are coming in and walking in, they're gonna walk into them. This one right here, because this one is harder to see. If you place one close all the way here, it is pretty easy to destroy, so they just have to walk here and then they can destroy it. But if you place it a little farther on the edge right here, it is harder for them to see and you can get a freer kill. Other trips you can also use is one like this one like this one, over here, then one like this, even one like this, or even a pretty crazy one, which is a one like this. It works sometimes, people run into it, but sometimes it's like, I would say 90 to 80% of the time this trip doesn't work. So if you do it once in a game and you get somebody, don't do it every round after. It isn't such a good trip. You can also use trips here close from these barrels. Same way like this as well. These are pretty hard to destroy and pretty hard to find, and you can then obviously also use trips like these. Or if they are always pushing the top part here, you can also use a trip right here. Again, if you play a Cypher, I recommend going into a custom game and finding some cool trips. One trip I've also found is one like this. This can work sometimes, people walk into it, but it isn't the greatest trip. But in general, just throwing out some random trips is a pretty good idea, because most of the times the people are going to be like, yeah, there's a trip and there's a trip, and the next round they're going to expect the same trips, so they're not going to be ready for other trips. So especially if you place a lot of trips behind, like far behind, like over here even, and you then switch it up by using a trip like this one and a trip like this one, they're most likely gonna walk into them. Combined with these trips, you can use different cages. One I like a lot is one like right here, because if you pop this cage, you can go down here and peek out here, and if there's somebody close in this corner, you can see them. And it makes it so even if there's no smoke right here, or if the smoke is fading, you can still see the people behind it. And it is pretty easy to get down out of here, then even peek through here, and even go up again without the cage being caught. Another cage I really like is one like this one. where I place it right here.
Cage trigger.
You can pop this cage, you can then play on top, you can even jump up here, which is kind of risky because you might be seen, but even just playing around this cage or using a cage right here is a pretty good thing, because you can pop it, you can hide behind it, you can hide on top. It is also kind of a one-way. If you are on top, it is hard to see you, and you can see the enemies in main pretty well, especially if they're jumping up here, and it is pretty hard for them to see you. And then one last one is over here, or even on top of the bridge. Popping this cage allows you to walk out and get pretty far out. Same thing with this cage right here. If you place it a little closer, like for example here, you can walk out and get pretty far up. Check close, even check your cam. If you have a cam, for example, up here, check if there's somebody on this side. If there's nobody, you can just peek out and get a free kill, and then even go back. For mid, I don't recommend using a trip, but the thing you can use is your cam. You can use the cam like up here by jumping from these stairs and placing it up here to get information over main. You can see if people are walking up here, if somebody walks up here, and especially if you don't have anyone playing in mid and you yourself are playing on B, you can use this cam, check it from time to time to see if anyone is walking up mid, and you get all of the information over mid. Other than that, I wouldn't recommend using a trip on mid because it's kind of a waste of a trip, and your cam does the same thing, just way better because you can clear up both lanes, you can watch the top part, you can watch the bottom part, and with a trip you can only clear off one of them. Switching over towards B. B is pretty similar to A. You can place a lot of really good cams, one being on this wall right here or even higher up, but right here gives you all of the information over site. You have to wait for the run to start though to place this cam, so playing up here as a Cypher isn't too bad of an idea, especially if you're playing over here with a cage here and here.
Cage triggered.
You can play around these cages, hold here, check your cam to see if anyone is close. If anyone is close, peek them out, and then go back again. And just hold them from this angle right here, if I can get to it. This angle right here, it is a pretty strong spot, and with cages you can play a lot of different spots on top side, and you are in general a pretty heavy nuisance to the enemies. And then you can check your cam to see if somebody is close. Other good cams is one right here, because with a cam like this you can watch behind this thing, and the people from window can't really see your cam, and you see if somebody is walking up. And you can obviously also see most of the side area. You can't really see backside, but this is fine because this cam is mainly for a retake. So if you plan to play for a retake, using this cam is a pretty good cam. Other cams you can use is one up here to check out for main, and area right here. This one is pretty good if you're playing B for retake as well. You get early information. Especially if you have a lot of players on A. If your team decides to do an A push, for example, you can then play mid, jiggle mid, and then check your cam from time to time to see if anybody is lurking up. And one last cam, it's kind of a cheeky cam, and you also have to wait for the round to start to place it. It is one right here. You can see the backside area, and it is pretty hard to spot because it's in a really unexpected spot. This is especially good if the enemies like to go here and plant. Like that you can get information over the people playing back here. You don't get information over the people playing close. For that I still recommend a Vod reveal or just any util to stop them from being here. But a cam like this gives you a lot of information over the enemies, especially if they're trying to go for a post-plant peek from here. You can even see them pretty easily, and they might even be deterred by your cam, so they see your cam, they break the cam or get attacked by it, they gotta take out the dart, and then they can re-peek, so you can at least get the half most of the times. Now onto the trips. There's a couple of really good trips, and in general playing the same way as on A is a really good idea on B. So you have either trips that are really far behind, for example this trip right here, which is a pretty strong trip because it is pretty hard to shoot for most of the enemies. And if they have like a neon or a chat going up here, a lot of the times they have to break the trip themselves, which is a pretty hard thing. And if you then peek out from, for example, here or backside, you can get a free kill. Because this trip cannot be broken from anyone playing here, because first of all, the other part of the trip is through these boxes. If they insta break it through the boxes, they are just the better player. But other than that, they can't break this one because it is in a unbreakable spot. If they are playing in main, they can still see this one, but it isn't like that common to have somebody coming up here, especially because most of the times there's a smoke right here. Other trips you can use is one like this to get more aggressive information. Then also a trip like this one to get information over people jumping up here. Also a trip like this one is pretty good. You have to wait for the round to start though to place this one. This one is especially good because the enemies that are trying to jump up here are gonna get caught and then fall down. You can also use another trip like this one to do the same thing, especially if they're just running in, they're gonna get caught by it and then they're gonna fall down. And some more things, trips like these are pretty good. Trips like these are also pretty good. And in general, just go into a custom game and check for more trips. One I also really like, if I usually use some trips that are far behind, to just throw a curveball and throw a trip right here and a trip right here and play pretty aggressive. For cages, I recommend you always have a cage right here, because this cage allows you to play back here. Just wait for them to come in and then bang through. And even if you get a lot of util thrown at you, just pop this cage, get into the cage, or get out of the site pretty easily with a cage like this. If you don't have a cage, or if you don't have any cages left, ask your smokes player for a smoke right here, which does the same thing. Other good cages, as I've already shown you before, is a cage up here.
Cage trigger.
Because it allows you to play on top. It also allows you to play on the bottom and play around the cage to fight the enemies in a pretty easy way. Switching over towards attack. Attack is a pretty easy thing as a Cypher, especially on this map. You can place a trip right here on this line to stop them from pushing out A, or flanking you if you are going A. If you want to have a earlier information, you can also use a trip right here as a flank trip. Always remember placing it on the second line right here is the perfect height so nobody can get through. You have to kind of realize though that there's two more steps right here. So if you place it around the same height as you place this trip, this one here is basically unbreakable if you place it all the way in the back. But even like this, the enemies are most likely gonna walk into them and you can get information over whoever is trying to flank you. The other one is, the other thing you can do is a cam right here. Get information over bottom mid if they like walking up bottom mid, or if you just want to get information on who is playing in mid. This cam is pretty good because if somebody peeks right here, you can tag them in the beginning of the round. They're most likely gonna break your cam, but you can then kind of walk up mid with that timing, so you just sneak up and you might even get a kill on the person that was peeking bottom mid. Or just in general, playing here, checking if somebody is rotating, if your team is going A, is a good idea. Other things you can do as a Cypher, if you only use one flank trip, you can then use your second trip on site. Either like this, which is pretty easy to shoot if you're just walking into it. But it is also a pretty good trip if you have planted right here.
I have dropped the spike.
Because the enemies have to walk through it to get to the spike. Or you can also use a similar trip as you used on defense, one like this, or one like this. If I can get the right spot. Or even a trip like this does the job pretty well. Sometimes they're gonna walk in and you can get a free kill off of that. If you have a trip on site, I recommend you play main behind the smoke, because like that you're in a safe spot. You can see if somebody walks into the trip, peek out, get a kill, and then go back again. Another thing you can do, if you have placed the spike on this bridge right here, or this spot right here, is to use this cam. Because if you have a cam out there, nobody's gonna expect it, and you can always check if somebody's on the spike. But other than that, this cam has no other use, so using it without knowing the spike is here is a pretty bad thing. Other than that, you can also use a trip here to stop them from taking the space here again. Or something I recommend you do on a Cypher if you're with your team on a Cypher is to throw cages in towards heaven. If you get them a little better, they're gonna cover the whole spot. And it is pretty important to do that with your cages, or it isn't really important, but it helps your team to take the site, because most of the times the smokes are gonna fade, and if the smokes are fading and your team is still on site, playing up here, the person can get a lot of kills. And if you have a cage right here, the enemies are gonna make noise if they walk into the cage, and you can then just spray into the cage where you think they are walking in. Another cam you can use is one where you go up here after you've planted, or one of your teammates planted, and you place it right here to check for somebody defusing. It is a cam that is pretty high up, so if the enemies are holding main, they're not going to see that cam because it is outside of their view. Other than that, that's basically it for the A side on attack. What you can also do sometimes is throw a cage right here to walk out and isolate the person that is over there, and then throw another cage right here and then peek them right here. But you shouldn't be the entry if you play a Cypher, so in general just using your cages to re-smoke things or to do to get a good timing is a good idea. Switching over towards mid, I've already shown you some stuff you can do on mid, but something that is also really important, and I don't see enough Cypher players do this, if you know there's an AWP in mid, you don't have a chance against them. 9 out of 10 times the AWP is gonna kill you and you're gonna die. So use your cages to cross over so they won't have a chance of shooting you. Maybe even wait a second for their AWP to shoot and then walk over. It is a pretty easy thing to stop you from dying to an AWP. And one more thing, you can also use a cam right here to check mid in a pretty easy way, or use cages like these where you just throw them around here to lurk up towards mid, and then when you're close here you can use the second cage and get in towards this area right here by just spraying through. You can also get these cages from farther behind, so if you're walking up here and you're running forward, throwing a cage like this is going to do the same thing with just one cage, but if you only have one cage you have to worry about this angle right here, and it is in general better to use both cages if you want to get into the link area or the vent area right here. Other things you can do on mid is a trip either here close if your team decides to go B, or either here to get information over anyone that is pushing from B or anyone that is pushing down mid, so your team can't really get flanked. Combining that with the mid trip like the other one I showed you here is a pretty good idea, because most of the times the enemies that are flanking fast are going to go through mid, so they're either going to go up this rope and then run through here, so they're going to walk into a trip right here, and if they want to then full flank again, they're going to walk into here. If they flank all the way around from here, which is pretty uncommon, it is lucky for them, and I think they deserve the flank if they run all the way around. Switching over towards B, if you want to flank trip for B using a trip right here, and then one I showed you just before up here is in general a pretty good idea, because like that nobody can come from behind except if they have a TP or an updraft, and you're most likely gonna hear that. And then using a cam close here to get information over the site is a good idea, because most of the times there's somebody in heaven holding you with an outlaw or an op. Or even if there's not somebody close here, you can still get a lot of information with a cam like this, especially if somebody plays close right there. Then you are most of the times not going to be the entry, but if you have to kind of go in using cages like this or like this close are pretty good, because like that you can cross over here and clear out the backside with your team by going through main. Other good things you can do is to use a trip like this to stop the enemies on the retake, but in general using your trips on site on attack is not the greatest idea. You can also use your cages right here to get a spray off of the enemies if they're trying to go for the defuse, or even if you want to play close here and somebody is trying to push you, they're gonna run into you and then just gonna fall off, and they're gonna be a free kill for your team. One more cam you can use is one close here. To get information over this area right here. If the enemies like to play back here for a retake. If I had to give Cypher a rating from S to F, I'd actually give him the S tier. Because he has global utility, he has really good trips to get kills off of them, and his cam is also really good to get information over the map. So in general, he's probably the best sentinel to play on this map, together with maybe a Vice. That would be it from me. If you want to see any other agents on any other maps, write them down in the comments. And if you want to see anything else Valorant related, write it down there as well. Also, don't forget to like and sub, and come say hi to me on Twitch, where I stream almost daily. Have a great rest of your day, and see you guys very soon. Bye!